Hello. All right. Hello. So I really appreciate all of you for coming here today. And I also am really appreciative of the fact that you guys still stay until the very end. So let's applaud ourselves for that. So I just want a quick show of hands. How many of you guys know me? So please raise your hand if you don't know me. So every one of you don't know me? Okay, TED Talk over. Okay, so I'm a teacher, and I published my first book when I was 21, and I graduated high school when I was 16. And I did all of that while procrastinating. I'm a chronic procrastinator, and let me tell you the story of my experience with procrastination. Procrastination means that you're postponing, you're delaying to work until much later when you actually have to do it, right? So when I was still a student, I used to be a chemistry major. And that means doing lots of chemistry problems days in and days out. And for a normal student, normal chemistry major student, their workload may look something like this, right? They would start off strong, gradually increase their workload day in and day out, and then kick it up a really high notch in the final days when the assignment is reaching its deadline. For me, my workload looks something like this. Well, I would not start until the very end. But then came my City Excellence Student Contest. It was something that people have to prepare in advance for months. And knowing the significance of this, for a 14-year-old, I gave it my all. And I knew it. I knew I have to give it my all. People start months in advance, right? So I have a plan. My plan was to start the chemical reactions slowly. And then once it incubates, and then when the results are there, I would do some serious work. And then in the final sector, I would give it my all. I would lock myself in. The first few months, however, for me, came and went. I had an awesome revised plan. Well, but it was really strange. It was a really cold winter in Ho Chi Minh City. It was weird because Ho Chi Minh City is always hot, And then it also came and went until one day I realized I had 1 week before the contest. Whoa, I had to, now it's now or nothing. I gave it my all. I studied for 14 hours per day, 7 days a week for 1 week. And then I studied for 14 hours per day, eat for 2 hours per day, and sleep for the remaining 8. So I still am able to sleep for 8 hours per day, which was the only positive side. And then 2 weeks later, I received a call from my school counselor. She was like, "Tom, is this Tom?" I was like, "Yeah. Am I in trouble? You never call." She was like, "No, this time it's serious." I was like, "Really?" She was like, "The contest. It's the best one we've ever seen." And I was like, "Yeah, normal stuff." She was like, "You're valedictorian and being serious." That did not happen. I just wanted to enjoy the moment where there was complete silence. Everyone was, "Oh, this guy's on to something," right? I'm not that gifted, unfortunately. For chemistry, you still have to put in the work. That was me. I ended up second prize. Not too bad. It was decent work. It was. I'm not satisfied with it though. I still beat myself up to this very day. And in that moment, I learned something at a very young age of 14. I learned that procrastination is not about time. It's about belief. It's not about something in here. It's about something up here in your cognitive processing brain. I also learned that the gap between fear and belief was the place that we never get started. We struggle before we ever start. And that was when it hit for me. I came to that realization and I promised myself to never procrastinate it again. That did not happen again. Of course I procrastinate. Everybody does. Okay. So when I was 16, my next big thing came up. I transformed myself physically. It was not something that happened in a bathroom. It was happening in front of my bathroom mirror. So that was me. That was me at 14, 13, and that was 16. I used to be 110 kilograms and 250 pounds, or 1/4 from an elephant's weight for Americans. Okay, so how did I lose it? How did I shred the weight? So in the first few months, no, not the first few months. In the first week, I ran 5 miles per day, so 8 kilometers. And then I also compiled it with a diet of only potatoes and water. I lost 25 pounds or 10 kilos in the first week. And I gained it all back several pieces later. This time, being rebounded from that initial weight loss, I had to revise my eating plan. I learned how to eat right, I learned how to exercise right, and I successfully kept the weight off. That was my first realization of, I know that I have the ability to achieve whatever I want in life. Because, not whatever I want in life, but I know what was possible. I was able to become much more confident because of my new appearance in my mind, right? Next came my big twist in the academic journey. I graduated high school at 16, and I had several years to play with in terms of what I wanted to do next. I initially, being a chemistry major and all, I naturally pursued biomedical engineering as my field of interest. However, I did not survive one semester. If her grade was hanging by a thread, mine was bad. I hated all the lab work. And then I found something more interesting in Singapore. I quickly flew from the US to Singapore to pursue my degree in commerce as well as my degree in marketing. And that's me nowadays. Oh, that was me back in college. Now that everything is said and done, now that I've seen the consequence, the result of everything, I find that, and I tell myself that, every switch was not a failure. Well, I like to think that. It was discovery, and every detour gave me new coordinates and new goals. Next was another transformation in my entrepreneurial journey. I came back to Vietnam in 2022. I started a learning center initially, and it was specializing in teaching students and prepping them for the university entrance exam. Well, at first, students were flocking in. I was low-key, had a good reputation online. So students were flocking in. In the first month, we recorded 100 students enrolling. And somehow the business miraculously failed. You know why? Because I was procrastinating on asking them for tuition fee. Well, and also I only charged them for like $150 US per entrance. So that was another reason it miraculously failed. My girlfriend at the time, and still is, motivated me to redo it. I started my business currently, Nhà Eost, and it's still living nowadays. At first, I didn't believe in myself because I was just failed, right? I had no money because of all the tuition, because of the procrastination. I know I could write curriculums, could write textbooks for this field. I could write books, curriculums. However, I didn't have the courage to do it. She stood by me, and we started a center together. The realization of procrastination. Now is the science behind it. So procrastination, it's a cognitive mechanism that your brain uses to regulate your emotion, and it's a really effective strategy at that. Procrastination is not about the lack of time, or it's not about the laziness. It's about fear. It's fear of not being ready. It's the fear of trying but then failing, and starting but not succeeding at the very end. So that's procrastination. So how do we deal with this? And of course, not by skipping school, and not by doing chemistry for 14 hours per day, 7 days a week, right? Also, I encourage none of you guys to skip schools. Okay, go to BVIS. Still, go to school. Okay, so back to my original point. The nature of procrastination is just the conflict between the present self and the future self. The present self, it wants to remedy your emotion. It wants to protect yourself from pain. However, it directly conflicts with the future self, because the future self wants you to achieve much more. And the result is traumatic. It's because of avoiding a task improves mood only temporarily, or not improve it at all. And you end up in the long run stressing out. And it leads to ultimately poorer performance, which is what really is recorded. So how to deal with procrastination? Of course, first of all, go to school. Second of all, task junking. So what is task junking? Task junking is, and I encourage all of you to try this, or at least tell your students about it, please. So task junking is to break down a big task into smaller tasks, and to break down a big assignment into manageable steps. Instead of doing this big assignment or doing this individual assignment, start on it. I would encourage my students to first spend a 20-minute session doing the literature review. After that, spend some time thinking about it, because that's really when the creativity happens. And then ultimately submitting your paper. Much more manageable. That was what my mom did to me when instead of saying, hey, be more considerate to other people, she said, first of all, you need to greet everyone when you walk into the room. After that, you sit down, you quietly go to your place and then sit down. And third of all, be comfy. So that's not what, okay, so that was chat chunking. Next of all is choice architecture. And this is by far the most effective of all. Choice architecture just means that you architect your environment. So what I do is I sometimes tell my girlfriend to lock me in a room with me and only my computer, or I sometimes go really extreme typewriter. And it works. But don't try this at home, especially if you're a parent, because that's a felony, I guess. Don't do it if you're a parent. Do it if you're over 18, okay? So that's choice architecture. Or it just can be as simple as leave your phone in the other room, right? Ooh, okay, that's choice architecture. And third of all is time boxing. So this is by far the most commonly used among students. This is the Pomodoro technique. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. It's 25 minutes of doing the work and 5 minutes of resting in between. So all of this, and what I personally do myself, is something called drop everything and. So at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I do what's called drop everything and drink creatine, which is a substance that improves cognitive function. 30 minutes later at 1:30, I do something called drop everything and go to the gym. And at 12 a.m. every day, I do something called drop everything and sleep, regardless of the fact that I have not taken a shower or eaten dinner, but I always advise you guys to eat dinner. So that's what I do. However, that's short-term mechanism. What about long-term? How can I mitigate this and ultimately be a better person, not struggle with procrastination as much? So research shows, this research from Carleton University examined 120 participants, have found that those that forgive themselves do better in the long run. So the results have shown that students who forgive themselves or feel less bad at the moment are less likely to procrastinate in the future. So ultimately, what does this mean? Forgiving ourselves and feeling compassion when you are in a bad place is really, that's the critical thing. We should admit that we feel bad, but you shouldn't be overly critical of ourselves. And also, you're not the first person to procrastinate, and you're not the last person either. And doing this can take the edge off the negative feelings, and ultimately, it's easier for you to get back on track. I would like to dedicate my TEDx session today to my girlfriend, who struggles worse than me with procrastination. And thank you all for coming to my TED Talk.